There's nothing quite like lying to your friends. Getting the people who know you best to believe something that is entirely untrue is a surprisingly entertaining challenge. To be clear, I'm not an advocate for dishonesty, at least not in normal circumstances. But when it comes to hidden role games, or as a friend of mine likes to call them, trust likes, I'm all about it. I've dropped countless hours in titles like Secret Hitler, Avalon, and my most recent obsession, Among Us. While each of these games have plenty of differences, all of them center around asymmetrical gameplay where some players are assigned to complete a task and the rest are assigned to disrupt that task. The thing I love most about titles like this is they give me the chance to do something I would never feel comfortable doing in my real life: lie unmercilessly to people I care about. Hidden role games ask players to take all the trust and goodwill they've built with other people and use it against them. They're brutal, hilarious, and endlessly fascinating. From a gameplay perspective, they provide a challenge that you can't really get anywhere else. With a lot of titles that have asymmetrical gameplay, players can dedicate freely to the role that they're assigned. If you're a monster, you just be the monster. But that isn't really the case for Trust Likes. To be successful at both roles, players need to maintain a delicate balance where they aren't too obviously on one side or the other. For example, with Among Us, everyone is assigned one of two roles: crew or imposters. The crew's objective is to fix up the ship and try to figure out who the imposters are so that they can vote them out. And the imposter's objective is to sabotage everything and kill the crew. The two roles call for players to act in dramatically different ways, but if other people notice this difference, it becomes very obvious who the imposter is. This is where the real challenge kicks in, finding a consistent approach that works when playing as both a crew member and an imposter. It's hard to find that sweet spot, and there isn't an objectively perfect approach. It changes depending on the player and who they're playing with. Some people can get away with stuff that others can't just based on their personality, and a group made up of mostly loud and chaotic types will need an entirely different approach than one filled with reserved and analytical players. What's important though is finding a consistent way to play throughout a session and sticking with it. The focus should be more on winning the night than individual games. Throughout my years of playing various Trust Likes, I've experimented a fair bit in the hopes of finding an approach that would net me the most wins. I've been the analytical player who lays out all the information with the appearance of neutrality so that when I'm the bad guy, I can subtly manipulate facts to best work for my game. I've been the source of chaos who sows confusion amongst the ranks regardless of my role so that when I do something suspicious, people won't be sure if I'm evil or just stupid. However, what I found to work best is to play in a way where people are always a little bit suspicious of me, but not so much so where I make things too confusing. So in Among Us, I'll make sudden movements towards other players to make them think I might be contemplating killing them, and I won't do tasks that could clear me in front of other people so that I have plausible deniability when I can't do it as imposter. This makes it so when I play in a way that doesn't align with what a perfect crew member would do, I can throw out the defense that I always play this way. Admittedly, it tends not to work so well in early games, but after playing with the same group for a long period, it becomes a stronger and stronger defense. Of course, while being consistent is important, adapting one's approach as time goes on is as well. Like, for a while, I regularly responded to accusations against me with some variation of the phrase, "Why me?" And when I did that, people only became more suspicious of me, even when I wasn't the imposter. So despite it being something I was consistent with, it made me too suspicious. Now I respond in a different way that doesn't get me thrown out of the airlock as much. Keyword as much. I still get thrown out a lot. An important part of the game is learning how not to get caught in the sights of someone's gut feeling. Because while there are ways to gather concrete information in Among Us and other hidden role games, for the most part, everyone is operating on assumptions. And if they find anything that feels like information, they'll reach for it. This makes it very important to not only learn how to manage one's own assumptions, but also those of other people. And this is where the simple concept of a game where you deceive your friends starts to evolve into an episode of Death Note. When playing, I am constantly trying to break down the actions of every other player to gather some bit of information to take and run with. It's a constant loop of considering what any given player is capable of, what other players think that player is capable of, and what other players think that I'm capable of. Hell, even right now in just making this video, I feel like I'm still playing the game by putting certain information out there, so once the people I play with see this, I can try to use the new assumptions they've made about me to my advantage. Look, I'm in way too deep. And all of the things I just talked about are a few of the reasons why I don't really like playing with strangers. I find that having some sort of existing connection with the other people in a match adds a ton of interesting layers that I really enjoy engaging with. It's fascinating to play with people I know and trust because I get to learn how they act impact both when they tell the truth and when they lie. And it's the latter that is really entertaining to watch. Some do it in a cool and collected fashion, not missing a single step or having the slightest waver in their voice. Others approach it with a rising anger, making it hard for anyone else to get a word in, so other players have no choice but to think that doing anything other than what is being yelled at them means they are literally throwing the game right now. There aren't many circumstances where people get to lie to friends and walk away laughing, and that's what these games provide, a place to indulge in uncouth behavior without the risk of any real repercussions. The thing that intrigues me most, specifically about Among Us, is that I'm worse at it than any other hidden role game I've ever played. There are so many more moving pieces to it than the titles that first got me into the genre, and I still don't know how to balance everything to be the best crew member and imposter possible, but I really want to. And this brings up a somewhat uncomfortable question. Should I want to be good at games centered around lying? And the answer is no. Look, yeah, becoming an accomplished liar is not a great look, and anyone who walks away from these games with the thought, oh, it's so easy to get away with lying to my friends, should rethink some things. But I do like to win stuff. It feels really good when I make the right read on someone, and even better when I trick a person into believing a lie. As long as everyone shares the understanding that it's just a game, it's pretty harmless. With that said, hidden role games do run the risk of friends actually getting mad at each other. In my experience, what typically happens with trust likes is that a group plays together a ton, develops a meta that everyone begins to follow, which eventually starts to suck the fun out of things by making what should be a chaotic experience into a formulaic one. And when it hits that stage, it's not uncommon for people to start getting frustrated by how individual rounds are played. I don't think Among Us is immune to this, and my group is still pretty new to it, so it's hard to know how long we'll want to keep coming back. But I do think it has the potential for a much longer lifespan than the other hidden role games I've played, and that comes from its customization options. Pretty much every rule can be changed, whether that be adjusting kill cooldowns for imposters, shifting the amount of tasks the crew needs to do, or even hiding the roles of players after they've been ejected. Changing any of these options forces players to rethink how they approach a match, and I haven't really had that experience with other trust likes. Sure, board games are technically customizable, but something like The Resistance doesn't lend itself to the same amount of homebrewed modes as the options menu in Among Us does. Keeping track of made-up rules is pretty hard, but Among Us doesn't make players do that. Whenever any sort of staleness starts to happen with a group, the solution is almost assuredly somewhere in the options, and I adore when players are allowed to customize a game to fit their needs instead of having to always change to meet the game's needs. With Among Us, I hope this leads to a long stint of my friends and I being able to lie to each other. Obviously though, at some point we'll move past it, and most likely we won't play any games like it for a good while. Our faith in each other will slowly return from playing team games and having the occasional friendly competition, until of course the next hidden role game comes out, and I find myself back in the exciting position of not being able to trust my friends. And with all this talk about things you can't rely on, let's talk about something you can. The bassy rumble of Raycon earbuds. Raycon, who is this video's sponsor, makes high-quality wireless earbuds that sound as great as other premium brands, but start at about half the price. I don't like the sound of silence, so I'm pretty much always listening to something. And Raycons have been great for that, especially when out and about. They're comfortable, they sound good, and they don't have any cords to worry about, so they're really easy to just grab and go. Their latest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are awesome. They have 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing, tons of bass, a more compact design that gives a nice noise isolating fit, and they also come in new fun colors. And if you go to buyraycon.com/Rasputin, you can get 15% off your order. The link for that is in the description. All in all, Raycon makes great earbuds, so if you're in the market for a really solid pair, you should check them out. Anyway, thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring this video. I appreciate you all so much for watching. If you like Among Us, I do have some plans to stream it over on Twitch, so follow me and you can watch it maybe. That's all I got. I hope you have a great day and or night, and I'll see you in the next one.